All right, so hello, people out there who are watching this. My name is Tarot. Many of you may know me from various things. You may know me as that arena asshole who yells at Blizzard every time they screw things up. You may know me as a top tier leaderboard player and literally the best rogue in the world, according to Blizzard on Asia. Or you may know me from any of the stats stuff that I do on Reddit or Arena HS. And today I'm going to bring my arena analysis, which I always do in a written form, to the video world. So, as a warning, this is my first time using OBS, and I have to record a video, and I have been looking at this for about the last hour, trying to make sure like there's no buzzing, trying to make sure that I look okay, trying to make sure everything is fine. So if you notice any issues, please leave a comment. Please let me know if there is anything wrong. So, the arena analysis is I take a look at all these cards from Rhastakhan's Rumble and I tell you how good they are, as well as how good each individual class is. A little too slow to do that. Anyways, so because of the bucket system, it's not really something where I can just say I give this card a number. So, for example, I used to do it based off of Hearth Arena's tier list score, and I will still reference Hearth Arena, especially for the legendaries. But I do not believe that that's the best way to do it going forward because of the bucket system. So instead, what I'm going to do, this is my version of it. If you want, you can use the Light Forge. I prefer this because I made it. But if you want, but anyways, back to the point. So what I'm going to say is like if I say a card is in the top bucket, bucket number one. So here you can see we've got Swipe, Ultimate, Infestation, Spreading Plague. So for example, if I put a Druid card and I say it's in the first bucket, that means I think it's around these cards' power level. Now, in that case, let's say Blizzard, I say there's a top bucket card here, and Blizzard puts that here in the third bucket. So naturally, that means I think this card is a lot better than these third bucket cards, and if you see it in the third bucket, then you should pick it. On the other hand, what if we have a card that I say should be in the fourth bucket, and then Blizzard places it over here in the top of the second bucket? Well, in that situation, I don't think, like here, top of the second bucket. In that situation, then you should not take the card that is bucketed here in the fourth bucket unless it is really, really, really good for your deck. All right. And again, as I mentioned with the legendaries, because the legendary bucket right here, because the buckets are so small, because I believe these buckets are still poorly bucketed by Blizzard standards, I will go ahead and reference Hearth Arena's tier list. Let me pull that up right here. Hearth Arena tier list. Okay. And I will reference this. So if I'd like to talk about the score from 0 to 100, I'm using basically the Hearth Arena tier list. And as you can see, the Hearth Arena tier list, like here, you got a Swipe as a 99, you got Spreading Plague 78, you got Ultimate Infestation 134. So not exactly the same as Blizzard's tier list, but I believe that's a good approximation. And like I'll disagree with certain cards. Like I think Power of the World really should be over here, and I think Tortolan Forager and Druid Claw should be like a little bit lower. But otherwise, I believe the Hearth Arena tier, like I'll make notes of that. But otherwise, I think the Hearth Arena tier list is pretty good. All right, and one more thing, because of the bucket system, let me go back over here to Druid. So you see over here, these are the fourth and the fifth bucket. Fourth bucket ends about here. Fifth bucket ends about here. So here is the sixth bucket, all the way down here. So the majority of cards are going to end up either sixth bucketed or seventh bucketed. So just to reference these cards, in general, if you're in the bottom of the second bucket, means you only show up here. You don't show up with other sixth bucket cards. That means in general, you're a pretty garbage card. You are going to be extremely rarely useful in Arena. Why is Wisp an epic? I have no idea. But anyways, if you're listed over here, that means I think you're a garbage card. If you're 7 plus, I think you're a garbage card with upside. With upside. So, like for example, we got Webweave here. Webweave is, I think, the current top performing card on HS Replay. Like, I'll actually look it up. hsreplay.net cards, Druid, Arena. I know, waiting for everything here. Class cards, 1, 2, 3. Oh, I'm sorry. It's only the fourth best performing card according to HS Replay, and it's all the way over here in the 7th bucket. So you see, this is why I say if it's like a 4th bucket card and it's in the 7th bucket, you should take it. Anyways, going back to the point here. So cards here in 7+, I think for the most part, these are cards that are bad cards, but in the right deck, or in the right situation, they can be useful. And then going from here, 6-, these are poor cards, but like you're not going to be upset to take them. They're like right here, 6-, 6. This is about where you get your average card, like a card that would score probably high 40s, low 50s, or something along those lines. And then it's just a steady gradation from 6 all the way up to 1, which is like your cards that are 100, your cards that if they got nerfed, people probably would not complain that they got nerfed. All right. Anyway, enough about that. Back to Rhastakhan's Rumble. So, one key theme of Rhastakhan's Rumble is, as many people have noted, it is the overkill mechanic. So the overkill mechanic, like right here, Ironhide Direhorde. Overkill, summon a 5/5 Ironhide Runt. The overkill mechanic states that, let's say this attacks into something that has 6 or less health and kills it. So after it does that, it will summon a 5/5 Runt, whether or not this dies. So the problem with the overkill mechanic, which a lot of people have talked about, is that it, especially in Constructed, a 7/7 for 7 is pretty bad. That's a War Golem. Going back over here, Hearth Arena, War Golem. Okay, yeah, like a War Golem is right here, like a 48. So because of that, like you have a War Golem stats, so you need something more to get this card to be playable. And what you need is an OP effect depending upon how hard it is to get the overkill mechanic off. So a 7/7 for 7 that punishes you because it gets because there's a tempo loss if it gets removed. It punishes you because it's technically below what the average stat line would be at 8 mana. Or sorry, at 7 mana you would expect a 7/8 in stats, and so on. So they need a really, really strong overkill mechanic here to justify that. It's similar over here to a card that I know the Lightforge talked about as a card they want banned because of the drastic power level, the difference in power level, Ticket Scalper. And what they said, to be more specific, was because Ticket Scalper, when it hits, is so powerful, and when it misses is so weak, that it creates such a large gap that games will be won or lost off the simple fact if this card hits. And because of that like vast difference in power level, they want the card banned. So most overkill cards have this effect. Like here, Gurubashi Chicken. If you can kill something, like first you have to buff it, and then you have to kill something with it, and then if you could do something, game 5 attack. Pretty difficult to do, right? So for a lot of these overkill cards, let me see if there are any more neutrals over here. Linecracker, for example. Overkill, double this minion's attack. So I'll talk about it more. Good card later. 5/10 in stats. So basically, this is kind of like a soft taunt card. But like you hit something with it, like you hit like, let's say a 5/5, then it becomes a 10/5 instead of a 5/10. And then so on. So let me see here. Any more overkill cards? Like over here. Overkill summon another arena patron. That's not going to happen. But if this guy can like hit a totem, stick on the board, and then hit a totem, then maybe everybody will get in here with this card. All right. So going back to the point that I was making. Overkill, like the focus on overkill is ignoring the vast majority of cards in this set. It's a mechanic I'm going to call Feast or Famine, and I'll reference that. And what I mean by Feast or Famine is that if you can hit the condition on this card, then it's insanely powerful. And if you can't hit the condition on this card, it's poor or pretty bad. And the majority of cards in this set, like at least the class cards, hit this Feast or Famine mechanic. So let's take a look. Cards that are you have a condition that is necessary that is not easy to pull off to justify this card. Tree Speaker. Transform your treant. So stop there. You need treants. So you have a 4/4, and if you have a treant on the board, game +3/+3. There's very few cards in the game that give you a treant. So, like, if you hit the effect, it's great. You don't, it's garbage. Okay, Mark the Loa, fine. Gonk, you have to be able to kill something and attack multiple times. Generally means you need something like a Pounce comboed with it. Ignoring the legendaries. Oh, here. Stampeding Roar. Summon a random beast from your hand and give it rush. Pretty simple mechanic, but it requires you to have Stampeding Roar and to have a beast big enough to justify the cost, and then like have something for the rush to activate. Because, like, for example, if you have an empty board and it's turn 7, and you want to play, let's say, a Sated Threshdon, then there's no real reason to play a Stampeding Roar. Like, you're spending 2 cards to cheat 1 mana and give the card rush, which is sometimes powerful, but sometimes not powerful. So, like, that's an example of a card where you need a situation, and it's like a 2-card combo. Predatory Instincts. Draw a beast from your deck, double its health. So it's a tutor effect, so that would be worth like 1 mana by itself. Double its health, because it's 4 mana, you would expect to gain 6 health from something. So you need a beast that has 6 or more health for this card to be a decent card. So if you can pull an Ironhide Direhorn, this is a really good card. If you pull something like a Bloodfund Raptor, you're paying 4 mana to draw a 2 mana 3/4, and that's really, really bad. So that's an example. Savage Striker, this is a card that's good on its own, so it's not necessarily Famine, but powered up with a Pounce, and you've got basically SI7, which is one of the best cards in the game. And if you go through all the classes, and I'll talk about it more when I do my individual class reviews, all these classes, like, okay, this is the one that I don't like. Blood Scalp Strategist. Battlecry, if you have a weapon equipped, discover a spell. Like, I don't like this card because there is no counterplay in this card. It is either an insane card or it is a very bad card. So again, let's go over to Hearth Arena. Let's take a look right here at Rogue. And we see Rogue. We see Blink Fox right here. Blink Fox is an 88. Add a random card to your hand from your opponent's class. So a 3 mana 3/3 that develops a card. Okay, that's an 88. It's a random card. If it were Discover a card, that would probably be like 100. And then if we go all the way down here to... let's see, South Sea Captain, 51, which is basically a 3/3. So you see the difference in a 3/3 that does nothing and a 3/3 that always does something. We're talking a 50-point difference, probably. So if we go back over here, how do you play around this? Like, if they have a weapon and they play this, it's insane value. If they don't have a weapon and they play this, it's poor value. And I feel that outside of Overkill, there are a lot more of these cards in the set than there are like Overkill. Let me state that again. Like here, Spirit of the Lynx. Like the spirits themselves are a perfect example of this. If you can meet the condition on this spirit, if you can meet the condition of having enough beasts, then this is a good card. Like if you have this with Unleash the Hounds or Hunting Mastiff, this is a great card. But if you don't have beasts in hand, and that does happen, it's completely worthless. Like, let's see, Revenge of the Wild here. So you need beasts on the board. You need beasts that die. Like, you have to actually trade your beasts in and kill something, and then you play this. Or you play this after you play an Unleash the Hounds or a Hunting Mastiff. So if you don't have the beasts, And trust me, that does happen. This is a completely garbage card. If you have beasts, this is a completely insane card. And as I said, most of the cards throughout this set all fit into that mechanic. For me, personally, I am perfectly fine with Overkill. I think Overkill is not that toxic of a mechanic because at least with Overkill, there are a lot of choices involved. So, for example, like if I play the 7/7 and my opponent plays something like a 6/7 and a 5/5 on the board. So I can choose, do I want to kill off the 6/7? Like, well, I'd obviously kill off the 6/7. That's probably a bad example. Let's say he has a 5/5 and a 3/3 on the board. So I can choose to kill whichever one I want. But if my opponent's low at like 14 health, maybe it's better not to overkill, and maybe it's better just to go face. Then maybe I have a buff card here, like Mark of the Loa. So I can overkill, get a 5/5, and then I have a choice. Do I want to play Mark the Loa on my overkill on my dire horn and make it so that it's possible it can overkill again and summon the 5/5, or do I want to put it on the 5/5, make it so that I can protect my dire horn? Like those are all choices that I make. Like if we go back over to Ticket Scalper, so Ticket Scalper, like if I play Ticket Scalper and my opponent plays a 3/5, then I can either make a choice to invest mana into pinging it to draw 2 cards, or I can clear off the 3/5 and play a powerful 5-drop. And either one of those choices, depending on your deck, depending on your hand, would be correct. So there is a lot of choice with Overkill, and there are going to be a lot of people who screw up by going for an Overkill when it is not necessary or when it would actually be disadvantageous to go for an Overkill. And then on the opposite end, like if you're playing against this card, so people are going to play around Ticket Scalper because of its power. So maybe you don't use a removal if you see a Ticket Scalper, or if you're anticipating a Ticket Scalper. Maybe if you're a mage and you have a Frostbolt, you don't use that Frostbolt to kill a 3-drop and you just develop a 3-drop to trade in. Maybe if you're facing a Druid and it's turn 6 and they play a Boulder Fist Ogre, then maybe you don't use your hard removal on that Ogre, and instead you just develop so that when they play the Dire Horn, you can use your hard removal on that. I feel there is still choice involved with Overkill and how to deal with those minions for the most part. I don't feel that there's choice with a lot of these cards, like a Savage Strike. Like a Savage Striker, you're never going to be able to play around Savage Striker plus a Druid having some sort of attack buff in hand. And so because of that, when it hits, it's going to create a massive swing. And that's ultimately, depending upon how prevalent these cards are, what the expansion is going to be about. It's going to be about these massive swings that honestly you do not really get to play around. So overall, like I think some of these cards, like I think some classes I'm really interested in. Like for example, if we go over to Warlock, I think Warlock is my favorite class of the whole set because I want to see the discard your lowest cost card mechanic. I want to see how that impacts things. I want to see whether or not like it becomes a good idea to draft angry chickens and wisps just so they can be fodder for this. Because like that to me is interesting. Like the cards by themselves, they don't really have like let me rephrase this. The Warlock's condition for like almost all these cards is develop a wide board. Like outside of Shriek. So Blood Troll Sapper becomes a really good card if you have a lot of things on board. Demon Bolt becomes insane. You have a lot of good cards on board. Grim Rally, the more things you have on board, the better the buff is. Like Dire Troll protects things on board. Let me see here. Spirit of the Bat, the more things you have on board, the more buffs you can get off using this. Let me see. And so you see like 5 cards there that heavily reward you for having a board. Like discount the legendaries. Soul Warden is just a solid card on its own. Shriek, you take it because it's AoE, and AoE is insane. Like even if you're a zoo deck, you still take it. But anyway, so like Warlock, I'm very interested in trying. because all their cards are not really dependent on a condition that is hard to get. Mage. Mage's cards are largely like you got 3 elemental cards here: Scorch, Elemental Evocation, and Arcanosaur. Those are all based on elementals, something we've seen before. But if you look, Pyromaniac, it's based on using your hero power. Daring Fire Heater buffs your hero power. Spirit of the Dragonhawk turns your hero power into an AoE. So these, their condition is your hero power. And you're always going to have your hero power except when someone plays a Mindbreaker. So I'll be interested because these cards are always going to be good or at least decent because of that. And then sometimes you're going to get that situation where you play your Pyromaniac, then you play a Daring Fire Eater, making your hero power cost, do 3 damage. Then you play Spirit of the Dragonhawk, and then you kill off 3 things, like you do 3 damage AoE to 3 things, and you draw 3 cards from it. Because here, this isn't overkill. This is just if your hero power kills something, draw a card. And that's what 3, 5, 6, 8 mana, develop 3 bodies, and draw 3 cards. And that's pretty insane. So anyways, I'll get into it more when I do my individual classes, which classes I really like. As I said, I like Warlock, I like Mage, I like Druid, I like Rogue, because I always love Rogue, but especially for Serrated Tooth. I think this might be like one of the top 2 or 3 most slept on cards in the set for how potentially powerful it is. But anyways, yeah. So that's my overview of the set. Like, I don't like that there are so many like massive swing cards, and I'm a person who likes swing cards. I was the one person in the world who liked the synergy meta more so for what it could be. Like back when Blizzard had synergy picks, I liked it a lot more so for what it could have been if they had developed it rather than what it was. But those are the kinds of decks I drafted anyways. But if everybody is going to have these cards, and if everybody is going to have like massive swings when they pick these cards, then how do I want to say it? The fact that it's new, the novelty of seeing those decks and playing those decks will wear off, and it will get extremely annoying. Like Deathwing. Deathwing is the absolute most BS card in the game. Because like you have a giant board and then your opponent plays something, it wipes your board and plays a giant minion of their own. But we rarely see Deathwing. So when I get Deathwinged, like I'm not angry I got Deathwinged. Maybe I'm angry if they got it out of a Bone Drake, but I'm not upset or angry that I got Deathwinged just because it happens so rarely. If everyone had a Deathwing, and I had to consistently play around Deathwing every game, and I kept on losing games to Deathwing, then it would be a lot different. And that's kind of what I'm worried about here. I don't think it's going to happen because there's no expansion bonus, but if everybody had these swing cards, like if he gets like the Bloodsail Howler, let's say you had a Sharkfin Fan out, you attacked the Sharkfin Fan, you played a Ticket Scalper, then you played Howler, and you had a 4/4. Or you did something like, Spirit of the Shark, you play Sharkfin Fan, which is over here, 2 mana, 2/2. After your hero attacks, summon a 1/1 Pirate. Then you play, so that's 4 mana, you attack with your dagger. Then you play Bloodsail Howler, and then the Bloodsail Howler gets double battle cries, so it becomes a 5/5 rush. If I saw that every game and I didn't have anything to deal with it, that would frustrate me to no end. All right. Anyways, I've rambled long enough. That's pretty much my overview. Okay, I will go through each class, go through the cards. I will say which bucket I believe they belong in. I'll say why these cards are good or bad. And I will see you guys in the next video.